All right. Yay. Yay, yay, yay. Well, welcome everyone to the StarBurst Speculative Sunday Poetry Readings for Women's History Month. I'm going to pause and let someone else in. This is Sunday, March 1st, 2026. We are live on Facebook via Zoom, and we're recording. So if you don't want to be recorded, please remove your image. I'm a cool Leslie Hope speaking to you from the ancestral land of the Onondaga, also known as the Seneca, keepers of the Western Door in the Southern Finger Lakes region of New York State. I pay homage to the Seneca, past, present, and future, as I do to my own ancestors by whose grace I exist and am sustained. The series is made possible in part by poets and writers with public funds from the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the New York State Legislature. Inaugurated in September 2020, the series seeks to remediate the lack of presentations of speculative poetry by its living creators. Now, happily in its 7th year, the Speculative Sundays Poetry Reading Series has presented 86 poet readings. Wow. Speculative poetry, ancient of days, older than the last flood. The poetry of possibilities centers the imagined as real. The first recorded human literature was speculative verse. Gilgamesh, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the Iliad and the Odyssey, and Beowulf are ancient examples. Speculative poetry includes alternate history, astro poetry, cryptid, cyberpunk, dystopian fabulism, fairy tales, fantasy, folklore, futurism, horror, magic, monsters, mythology, occult, paranormal, robot, science fiction, shifters, slipstream, solar punk, solar funk, space opera, superheroes, supernatural, sword and sorcery, sword and soul, steampunk, time travel, post-apocalyptic, and weird. It uses all poetic forms plus one of its own called sci-fi coup. From nursery rhymes to Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven, from Puff the Magic Dragon to Zombie Jamboree, we've all recited and sung speculative poetry. The series recordings are online and at YouTube and SpecPo videos. And the list of past poets is also at Speculative Poetry. Now, let me just say for a second, speculative connects with women's history. Women in speculative poetry, I think of Christina Rossetti's Goblin Market and Emily Dickinson's witch poems and ghost poems, both writing before the 20th century. But when I said ancient of days, this brings tears to my eyes, and I'm not faking because I'm getting a little bit clamped. Humanity's first known author, Enheduanna, high priestess of Ur and daughter of Sargon, is the first known author in history. She wrote hymns to the goddess Inanna and other deities, offering a look into individual consciousness over 4,000 years ago. So speculative poetry and women's history and humanities voyaging into inscribing their thoughts about what is imagined and felt began with Enheduanna. let me tell you about tonight's fabulous poet. Deborah L. Davitt was raised in Nevada, but currently lives in Houston, Texas, with her husband and son. Her award winning poetry and prose have appeared in over 70 journals, including, yeah, big up for that, fantasy and science fiction, Asimov's Analog and Lightspeed. Oh, I admire all of these journals very much. For more about her work, including her poetry collections, The Gates of Never, Bounded by Eternity, From Voyages Unreturning, Xenoforming, liked that a lot, and To Love Unquietly, please visit her at deborahLdavitt.com. Welcome, Deborah.
Hello, Aku. It is a delight to be here. Thank you very much for that rousing intro. And I love hearing you talk about the history of our genre because it really does go back forever. And I am pleased so much to be a part of it. Let's get into the poetry because that's what we're here for. All right. My first poem tonight is one that I really like to read at conventions because it is a great introduction to science fiction poetry if nobody's ever seen or heard it before. Enceladus first appeared in Palutexni, a magazine of many arts, in
Mm.
2018. Against the face of night, a white moon hoves into view, a hostage, bound and fevered by a titan's gravitic caress, responding to him, trammeled by a fellow captive's jealous chains, her inner ice melts, yielding to the sweet torment of gravity's exquisite duress, bending and quivering, buckling and shivering. Four parallel scars rake down her belly, left by a celestial tiger's claws. She bleeds ice mist in torrents, trailing veils of crane down behind her, shattered wings. She wraps herself in her mist, pressing snow to her breast to conceal her ravaged, pockmarked skin, bleeds out her essence to the void, heedless in her ecstasy, leaving a trail of frozen tears behind. Those feathers that do return to her as she's slowly devoured by her lover's ungentle embrace fall back to her skin like knives of cold stone. Self-destroying, self-creating, blinded by her rapture, she whirls around her beloved, entranced, while within her laboring core, dragons struggle to birth themselves through the Caesarean cuts left by the tiger's surgical claws, strive to shatter the shell of their mother, their ice-white egg. The heat within her heart that engendered them will in time spell their dissolution when she gives herself up to her lover entirely, dissolves herself, and spreads out as a final shimmering ring of transitory ice. And so, with each pass of the orbital dance, the universe pauses, waiting to see what kind of fabulous monsters have been born. And we're going to do a big jump cut of genre to the next one, which is My Big Fat Deep One Wedding. It was originally published in Journey, the Journal of Imaginative Literature, in 2022. This is a type of Welsh poetry called an Odd Gidwith. Sorry if I butchered the pronunciation. I would love to learn Welsh, but Duolingo kind of let me down on that one. I find the rhyme scheme very much lends itself to humor in English, and thus this poem, which I had intended to be eldritch, very much leaned into humor. Such a wedding so lavish, though a fish for a groom, tacit reminder that there's a price for courting old gods twice by writ. But the bride was so sassy a lassie, she sought escape for her mind could scarify, left her groom awry, agape. But fishmen rarely ravish any dish. Spawning's more fit. He sprayed the water like rice. Don't ask. And they were thrice knit. They're a couple most classy, his stare glassy on his ape. A union endurable, but they wish hell would reshape. We're going to move from the ridiculous to hopefully the sublime. This next poem is The Fresco. It appeared in my first collection, which was the 2019 The Gates of Never. It's inspired by both my love of art history and the amazing science of supernovas. Fingers mix egg yolks and wine. Protein chains acid lucent. Daub red ochre. Fairest child on wet plaster. Forming drops of a martyred saint's heart's blood. And deathless iron, forged from a star's dying heart. Eternity arrives. This next poem is Queen Fu Hao. This appeared in Eye to the Telescope 2024. It's about a real person, a Chinese queen who was basically almost erased from history. I find her fascinating, and there's a lot about her life that we don't know, which opens the door for a speculative hint of prophecy in this poem. When they heated the prepared ox bone, it cracked into the form of a dragon. The priests and diviners were surprised at what this meant for the baby girl whose future it foretold. Royalty, martial glory, marital harmony, all these, and a short life, a young death, all these would belong to Fu Hao, Lady Hao. Sent at a young age to the Shang Emperor, one of 64 wives from lesser kingdoms, she served mostly as a priestess at first, but retained control of her own lands. She accorded her lord husband tributes in her own name, made sacrifices as he bade. Did she ever heat the bones for herself, ask questions of the ancestors, and watch as the pattern of cracks unfailingly formed the dragon? She rose to be his second queen of three. Three consorts, not quite co-equal, bore him a son, and then rode to war as a general. Bronze tablets record her successes against Yi, Qing, and Ba. Did she know when the cracks formed the symbol for death that glory could carry her no further? Was she aware when, after death, her husband carried out sacrifices at her tomb, calling on her spirit for aid against his enemies? Did she notice when he declared her spirit wed to not one but three other great kings, knitting her to his ancestors? The bones now. The bones whisper in cracks and shapes and symbols, and every time they say one word: dragon. As you can guess from what I've been talking about so far, I have a great love of history. This next poem is Lurenmensch. This poem first appeared in Abyss and Apex 2023. On the surface, it's about a small statuette made of mammoth ivory, recovered from an archaeological site in a German cave. You can decide for yourself if that's all that it's about. I hear the rumble of your roar, lion man, rolling through the ages, straight out of the past. The sound curls around me as I study the cuts made by ancient flint into your ivory, chiseled out so precisely. The soft curve of your ears, the ruffles of your fur, the smooth, hard planes of thick hide armor that embrace your frame. I can see the strength of your legs like pillars, the power of your arms like tree branches, where 7 parallel lines scarify you, mark you out. I can feel the patience of the one who wrought you in silence and absorption, trying to capture the living essence of the cave lion and to bind it into man or God. The world was a more fluid place where animals and humans lived that much closer together, where nature was wild and dangerous and always at the door. How much danger did the artist feel? How much that was truly sublime and truly awful pressed upon him as he worked, day by day, month by month, to bring you to life? We cannot know those days. We're cut off from the sublime and lessoned for it. So we must listen for even subtle sounds out of the past that will teach us what it means to live on survival's razor edge, not in squalor, but where every day is a victory. This next poem first appeared in the Cascadia subduction zone in 2018. I'm still very proud of this one. I recall writing it at a lab core waiting to have blood drawn, which proves that poetry can really happen anywhere. This is Haunted. Phantom helixes dance, circles drawn into spirals by time, lines connecting us to our ancestors, ephemeral chains that we can't hear rattling. Each of us contains the mortal remains of ancestors 10,000 years gone. We are their lost battles, their relics, their burial grounds. We are their ghosts, haunting one another unquietly. And moving out of the past, we now move into the future. This poem first appeared in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction in 2020. I clearly wasn't done with the idea of a nature preserve on the asteroid 4 Vesta. The setting became the basis of my 2025 novella, The Carrying Capacity of Paradise. This is 4 Vesta. The tallest mountain in the solar system stretches 14 miles from base to summit and has no name to call its own. The central peak of Rhea Silvia, an impact crater, somehow considered more important than the monster that its creation birthed. It's not on Earth or even Mars, but an asteroid considered backwater by those who dwell on the commercial hub of Ceres. We domed that polar crater, half a hemisphere, with graphene, facing it with diamond. We warmed the regolith with satellites that condensed the light of a distant star. We planted jungles, transported animals, and now tigers haunt the incomparable slopes of Mother Rhea's bosom, prowling among sequoias grown impossibly tall and gravity just 2% that of Earth's. They dance in pursuit of their prey. Predators 600 pounds on Earth, weighing no more than a house cat here, leaping from bough to bough in pursuit of deer that have learned to graze on sequoia needles, while we humans live along the ceiling, watching over our world, this candle we've lit against the darkness. Sometimes, like gardeners, we prune and shape. Sometimes, like gamekeepers, we must call. But we're all entwined. The star outside is our candle. This candle we've lit is our star. This next poem is a triolet and has the distinction of being the only time I've ever appeared in Asimov's science fiction back in 2020. I do like formal poetry. When I'm writing in a form, the form does half the work for me, reaching across the void and bridging the gap between inspiration and actual production of words. Often when I write form, I don't wind up where I thought I'd go, but end up somewhere more interesting. It's kind of like Douglas Adams said about Zen navigation in the Dirk Gently books. This is vintage years. Rolling it on the tongue like red wine. Bittersweet, violet shifted. We drink time. It's got terroir that shifts like a sign, rolling on the tongue like red wine. On my palate, I taste stars as they align, tinged a bit with entropic rhyme. Rolling on the tongue like red wine, bittersweet, violet shifted. We drink time. This next poem first appeared in my collection From Voyages Unreturning, published by Aqueduct Press in 2023. This is a science fiction collection based around the wandering of a person who's tried to escape their past, their family, all connections, but forges a new connection with a living ship. This is Finding Yourself. They say that in order to find yourself, you have to start looking. You thought that meant to voyage within like the ancient Greeks, know thyself. But it didn't work. Introspection only takes you where you've already been. The internal black hole where all your past experiences achieve the critical mass of selfhood, but from which light so rarely escapes. Light travels, both wave and particle, through every possible path between its source and the perceiving eye. Photons are quantum ghosts, or maybe gods, everywhere at once until they aren't. So seeing yourself in a mirror only shows the collapse of reality. You needed another point of view, So you set off on a journey that might show you who you really are. Since we're on my collections anyways, this next one is Captive of Free Will. This poem first appeared in my collection Bounded by Eternity, published in 2022. The premise of this collection is that a woman has fallen in love with the Goblin King Oberon, except she steadily asked him to take away memories of her past, things that hurt her to remember, until she's no longer the person he loved, and jealous members of his court try to make her fear him. Under autumn leaves she wandered, grieved her losses, father, husband, son. Accidents still happen in our bright modern world, the one lit by gas lamps or electric. The time between wars, because there's always a fine brace of wars to stand between. Perhaps the globe-spanning wars of our grandparents, perhaps the one fought on puppet stages, shadows of the one not waged by superpowers, perhaps the endless ones we fight today. It doesn't matter which. She lost them all the people who mattered, to whom she mattered, and she sought respite in nature, beside a gleaming stream. Its waters dyed with the reflected glory of autumn leaves. He came to her then out from under the branches, whispering her name and all the voices she'd lost, offering her forgiveness, respite, blessed forgetfulness. And she took his hand and went with him under the leaves. Obviously, that one's from a fantasy collection. This next one is We Feed on Stone and Light. This poem first appeared in the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction 2022, but it's a load-bearing part of my 2024 collection, Xenoforming. As you can guess, it's dark sci-fi, but it has a hopeful ending. Stretching carbon and silicate rhizomes across the land, delicate lace connecting back to mother trunk, connecting me to all my kin. I feed on stone and light. I transform light into stored energy, chains of carbon and hydrogen atoms, sip water from hidden wells, and breathe it out onto the barren surface. My deepest roots find iron ore, titanium lodes, and my body grows stronger with each, branching upwards, ever upwards towards the sun. The little creatures that inhabit this world sometimes reach out a paw for my leaves and pull them back, flens to flesh. A learning experience noted by my oculars, transmitted along the humming network that binds me to all my fellows. Soon we'll reach the sky. Soon we'll thicken the atmosphere. Soon we'll breed storms. Soon our real work begins. And I think this is probably the last one I'm going to pull from a collection. This is Field Force. It appeared in my 2025 collection, To Love Unquietly. As with many things in writing and publishing, it took a while to find a home. I originally wrote this in 2019. Hold a magnet beneath paper and watch the metal filings shift and dance like stars in the sky. Lift like hairs on the back of your neck or flowers following the light of the sun. Attraction can't always be seen, just inferred. A look in someone's eye, a prickle of electricity in the touch of your hand. The two of us floating in space, spinning free. The field of our mutual dynamo flowing between us, encircling, entwined. And for a little change of pace, another humor poem, because I can't leave those alone. This is The Witch's Cat. It's in a form called a terzanel, which is a combination of terzarima and villanelle. I enjoy this challenge of this type of form mixed with its flexibility. It first appeared in Spectral Realms, February 2020. She lived alone as she'd always wished to, no husband or children to trouble her, and yet she brewed a broth of bitter rue. She crafted medicines from balsam fir, attended the births of cows and humans both, no husband or children to trouble her. Well, that meant she had time for such personal growth. She read both spells and improving books. She attended the births of both cows and humans both, gossiped with neighbors, and drank cold mint tea, secretly admitting that she was lonely. She read both spells and improving books. She Worked a charm on her cat, Mr. Beastly. Her cat turned human now 3 days a week. She had admitted that she was lonely. No more silence now when she wished to speak. She lived alone as she'd always wished to, but her cat turned human 3 days a week, and she no longer brewed a broth of bitter rue. This next poem appeared in Celine Quarterly, June 2021. I like it because it's a pure combination of sci-fi and fantasy. I enjoy things that bend genres and make the audience think. This is Gree. What do you carry for luck on a journey between stars? Is there a beneficial number between 3 and 13? Perhaps a prime? That will properly symbolize our fragile humanity, male and female, both Vitruvian, to an uncaring cosmos. With a circle to circumscribe us, as we form with our bodies both triangles and squares, and a rocket carries us on an interrupted parabolic arc. Perhaps the correct answer is on the Fibonacci sequence. We'll take 1 pinch of salt for the seed that birthed us, 2 pieces of iron for the red of our blood, 3 pieces of anhydro quartz with trapped bubbles of our native atmosphere, 5 quick strike light matches for the fires our ancestors lit that have sent us on our way. Wrap it up tightly in a vacuum-sealed canister. Sprinkle the container with distilled water, boiled and condensed for alchemical purity, and then earnestly pray to anything that's listening as our ship's drive pushes itself to superluminal speeds that we'll all survive the shock of deceleration. And from there, we're going to go into some of the darker stuff. This is A Garden of Flesh. This poem first appeared in the HWA Poetry Showcase, Volume 8, 2021. I think this poem marked the first time I was called out in Ellen Datlow's long list. As such, you can definitely prepare for this one to be dark. The flower mouths that sprouted from my flesh murmur a constant chorus, disagreement, disharmony. Red like roses, blooming against the skin of my wrists, petals always opening, closing, winking their stamen eyes knowingly, whispering just under my ears where they twine up from the flesh of my throat, whispering of all their hungers. Their thorns dig into the very flesh they grow from, drawing blood. It hurts to deny them. They make sure of that. From under my skirt, a soft, inviting chorus. It would be more embarrassing if I didn't know just how many thorns grow down there, too. Such a hungry garden I have for you. This one's also dark, but it's more angry. This is Medea. This poem first appeared in the Pink Hydra in 2025. It's me yelling at the world about how various authors have rewritten legends about powerful women, turning them into villains, and then their version has become the accepted form of the myth for thousands of years. They rewrote me, erased me, after the Persians came, and everything from the East became demonic in their eyes. The East, they said, where men were slaves. Never mind that they held slaves themselves. The East, they said, where men weren't free to believe in their own gods. But they were. The East, they said, where magic and mysticism held sway over reason. The East, where men first named stars. The East, where writing was born. The East, where mathematics was invented. The East, the East, the East. Look to the earliest legends to know who I was. The maiden who fell in with a hero and aided him in his quest. The good witch who gave him ointment to protect him from the flames of a brazen bull, who warned him of the skeletons that would rise from dragon's teeth, who subdued a dragon for him with sleeping herbs, who betrayed her kin for him, and all for love. Look to the later legends for the first disagreements. Was it I who slew my brother, or my beloved Jason? When he discarded me, all my aid being worth a mere 12 years of fidelity, did I send my children to a temple of Hera, to the queen of the gods who protects women and children for their own safety, given that my husband had taken another wife, and my children might be inconvenient to new heirs? Did I shut them in, or did the temple fall in an earthquake, crushing their tender bodies? Euripides and Neophron changed me. erased me, took the suffering wife and mother, and made me a villainess of the East, claimed that I killed my darlings with my own hands, then rose in a chariot sent by my grandfather Helios, a divine agent of wrath and retribution. Centuries later, I no longer recognized myself. Did I dismember my brother and my children? Did I poison them? Did I cook them in a pot? Did I try to poison Theseus in addition to having healed Heracles? Who am I? I am a woman with power, a woman from the East, and I would give much to have Euripides and all his calumnies sit down and drink from my cup. This next poem is this is again a Welsh form, and I'm going to butcher it again, a Bir Athdodath, a complicated Welsh form that I didn't say it right. It first appeared in Journey in 2023. It's about quantum universes split by magic, or maybe by science, and the work needed to repair that gap. This is Worlds Divided. A reflection in a mirror. Betwixt worlds, our vision's clearer. You're a wolf in both, or is it a mask? Our tasks these world kept slip. Our tasks these worlds kept split. Divide like words said in thunder, lest each steal each other's wonder. One has science, the other magic holds. Walls fold, and end tragic. As these two worlds come to collide, existence in each tends to elide. You can live in each, but not in both. Our oath becomes most fraught. To save those to whom we would lend a hand, we'd have those walls to mend. And so we did, while lives winked out like stars, lost memoirs without doubt. But now those walls have been mended, and life in both worlds is splendid, save for those who still remember it all. They trawl dreams for embers. This next poem appeared first in Strange Horizons 2022. It was nominated for a Riesling the same year, which I remain grateful for. It was inspired by an island in the North Sea, which I think belongs to Denmark, though it's been a while since I read about it. On the shore, stones were placed in spiral patterns. The archaeological record seems to demonstrate as long ago as the Chalcolithic era. So they've been there for a long, long time. This is Bla Jungfrun. Do not take a stone from my shores. Don't you think I can feel where my own bones, no matter where they go? I'll send my invisible sinews after you, threaded on the wind. Rise up out of the stone you took as a mere souvenir, and teach you the meaning of regret. Bring my stones, my bones, back to me. Leave them in the ritual lines of the mazes your ancestors wrought, the tattoo, the silent runes that bind me here. It's your best chance as you sail away back over the waves to whatever useless silent land you came from. You'd best know that I'm alive, that I'm the witch herself, not some feeble, fleeting human, but the land, the earth. You're adorable in your confusion, your fear. Come back. I could just eat you up. This next poem appeared first in Panoply back in 2017. I still like this one. It's kind of sexy, actually, but it's about printing books. Maybe. Or maybe it's about bondage. You make the call. This is Testament. The burin's edge slants across my flesh, slicing through the skin like copper plates and taglio, chiseling runes in the ink of my blood, staining his fingers black. The lines entangle and jam, weaving ascenders and descenders and tender embraces, each word opening me further, binding me, defining me. He writes me upside down and backwards, so that I hardly know myself yet, but my 100 newly opened mouths whisper secret meanings and offer atramentum kisses. He soothes my wounds with copper vitriol, making the words holy and incorruptible, incapable of fading into sepia. Yet as he kisses me, our tongues meeting, The words spark white fire under my skin, the runes writhing into new configurations, just as true as the ones he placed there. I wrap myself around him. The words press against him, brand him, surge into his soul. I pour into him as he pours into me. I whisper his name against his ear and bind him as he bound me, press him as a leaf among my leaves. We have two more poems to go, and I think I have time to read them both. So, Tessellation. This poem first appeared in Silver Blade 2019. The magazine's archives appear to no longer be online, which is a shame. So here it will be on YouTube forever. Bounding a finite space with an infinite line, the pattern repeats itself regularly, predictably, endlessly. The same ratio between divisions, the same angles proceed from the macro to the micro, the corrugations of a brain, the shape of synapses coiling within the skull, the fragile fractal shape of nerves swaying in a serotonin storm, the way that tree limbs dance in a hurricane. Each life is tessellated, curved and arced and planed to fit snugly beside another, like jigsaw tiles. Each piece a part of the other, a part of the whole chaotic system. None of us can stand far enough outside the fractal boundary to see the patterns to it all, to see that we are the tree in the storm. We are the raw and aching nerve. We are each other, pieces in a mosaic, only whole when we're together in this world. And we're going to end on a happy, fun note of sorts. This is Shaping Futures. This is from the Limerick in Chains, a 2025 anthology that collects literally chained limericks. The goal was to show how a form usually best known for being about dirty jokes could become something more. This poem was written for this collection, one of four that I had accepted there. Only one of which, I might add, is dirty. This one is not, I promise. The future is always a desert, and no matter how you are alert, the desert has its due, and soon you will rue what the past cannot even assert. Do you wish the future to avert, unwind the skeins of fate, and divert? Would you this debt accrue, and destiny pooh-pooh? Then with time itself you'll have to flirt. So make of the desert a garden, with a will that you must fast harden. Kiss time on the face, and keep quickly apace. Ask permission rather than pardon. And that's where I'll stop.
You're so fabulous.
Thank you.
I mean, truly,
I
truly.
wanted to show range. I wanted to show
I was
range in
just going
this.
to say, well, you're taking the words, but there's the words. The range is so fabulous. And I haven't read all your books, but I read Xenoforming and just knew I so wanted to hear you live and have you share. That's that was just like such a please, folks. I mean, get any of her collections, but I love that one. I know that one and dig it and dig the heck out of
Thank
it.
you so much. Thank you so much. I'm always thrilled to hear when somebody has read one of my little twiddlings. So
No, you because what what we got to hear this evening in terms of hearing her range is is the depth with which you inhabit every form that you take,
I do try.
which is and you do it. Okay. So you I'm glad you try because then we get the benefit of hearing and feeling that. It's not surface or superficial. So and okay, so for those who are just hearing me say blah blah blah, what I'm saying is you'll read a poem or think of it like a song. You'll read a poem and there's a melody and then there's a rhythm and then there's a story. And then the story, though, is making all of these points that are supported by the form. She is she's right here, but because I'm talking to the audience. She is such an exquisite and thoughtful craft person in that way that there are levels. So you can experience it at many levels. And if you read it again, you'll get something else. And it's sheer joy to make your acquaintance uh, visually, since I've only seen you on the page. So I ask people to ask questions, and since I don't see any, I get to ask, you know, my
Oh no.
own. So let's start with a couple of the basics,
All
which
right.
is when did you start writing poetry?
Well, like most people, I had various school assignments that dragged words out of me when I was in high school. And I look
Ah,
back at some of those and they are absolutely abysmal. They're terrible. I was very embarrassed by them. There was one point in time
but you
where
didn't stop.
I then I remember my mom made me read one that was dedicated about my dad to my dad. Now, that was just a
Ooh.
cringing, horrible experience. I
Oh.
never wanted to do that again.
Mm.
And then I went into college and graduate school, and I was specializing in medieval and Renaissance literature. So I
Oh.
read so much poetry. I read so much poetry.
Oh.
And but I never had the itch to sit down and write it.
Oh.
So then, when I was, believe it or not, writing fan fiction, I was writing a Mass Effect fan fiction. So very much in the future, and
Oh.
I was trying to develop some of these alien cultures a lot more than you can see in a video game.
Mhm.
And so I was writing poetry in that, and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of fun. But again, I didn't think of anything to do with it until 2015. I met
Wow.
Michelle Munzler at a convention here in Texas. And she told me, poetry is for profit, young lady. I went, what? Yes, there's such a thing as speculative poetry, and it pays. I was like, I've been trying to get my novels out there. I guess I could try writing a poem or two. And then
Hmm.
it sort of snowballed on me. And after two or three collections, I started having to actually call myself a poet, which felt very pretentious at the time.
After two or three collections, people say poet before they've gotten one collection.
I was so embarrassed about it. It was like,
I
but poet is such a big word. And for me to call myself
oh,
that is a big thing.
I'm glad you do. Uh, I'm shocked that you're saying after two or three collections versus after, you know, after one coffee house reading, there are people who crown themselves, poets in
Oh, that would be
multiple.
there's a huge
Oh my
amount of
God.
social anxiety wrapped up in this body. You have to
Mm,
understand. So
mm, mm. I'm glad you've given yourself permission because doesn't that make it a little easier or does it not?
it does. And admitting to it and then having to live up to it and then helping others to explore it is kind of where I'm at right now is where I try to engage with people. I try to get them to write poetry, to get them comfortable with this.
Yes,
And right now I
it's
am
contagious, isn't it?
it
Oh
is,
my
yes.
goodness.
And so right now I am in the middle of my yearly poetry workshop of sorts on a
Excellent.
poetry forum that I'm
Mhm,
on. And
mhm.
so I have newcomers every year, and we try to make it the kindest and gentlest and just most cozy place possible because poetry is scary for people. People have been taught by teachers that poems are supposed to be addressed with, white gloves and
Oh
only
my
allowed by
God.
museum curators, and you can only disassemble it if you have a degree in it. No.
That is so painful and sad for me to hear. If I feel like something got lost during the eras, and I say this, I don't want to spend any time on me, but only to say, gee, folks, something's changed because I remember when poetry was a tool and we
Hmm.
were all culture soldiers and everybody was standing on street corners declaiming. And
Yeah.
every time we had a rally, you had to have a poet at the rally to say a poem about the moment. So it pains me that over time, the our popular culture has changed to what you
Yeah.
say.
It
You know,
really has.
that
And some of it is
playfulness.
how we have addressed it in terms of education instead of making this a joyous thing, a
Right.
thing that an outlet for anyone. It
Well,
has become
Valentine's,
this yeah.
Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, Father's Day.
Yeah,
We're
but
always,
now you just go get a card and it's somebody else's cheap
oh,
sentiment, and most
so
of us are
sad.
usually very uncomfortable with the poetic version of the sentiment. So we mostly go and get the funny cards, and that's fine. There is something to be said for expressing your own heart and
Yes,
opening yourself
thank
in
you.
that way, but it makes you vulnerable, and a lot of people aren't comfortable with being vulnerable.
Okay, so it's the vulnerability that's made it harder for people, you think?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of different cultural factors. I
Mm,
think there's the education system treating poetry as a revered document
mm.
that you common people can't really understand.
Something under
And
glass, right?
yeah, exactly. Yes.
That's,
It can only be touched again with people in white gloves who have a degree in this,
oh, yuck.
which is not, I mean, you do need to learn to interface with stuff that's old, but there's also so much stuff that's being written now.
So much,
I mean,
including you.
I would even go so far as to say that we should be dragging rap into classrooms because that is poetry of the modern era, and
Well,
people engage with it. And
you know,
it would be such a good thing to
I,
have as
I
the
share,
curriculum.
I shared how, I won't say I'm before rap, but I'm before rap. And I know the people before rap. I mean, I was
Yeah,
in New York City when rap was
just this thing
evolving.
coming up. Yeah,
Right. So again, it's shocking to me that it's kept away versus being used as not to mix a metaphor, as a gateway drug to
it should be.
rap.
Yes.
Rap should be the gateway drug to poetry because you can hear it, you
Yeah,
hear it everywhere. But like I said, speculative poetry is everywhere. It's
yeah.
in the music. Poetry is everywhere.
So
That
my husband and I are big on symphonic metal, and
mm,
so
mm,
much of symphonic metal is speculative poetry.
here
I
we
sit there and go,
go.
"Oh, that is all about Ishtar. That one is all about gravity
Whoa.
and time. That
Mm.
one's all about yes, this is my jam." So
I wanted to say big ups for your dragon love. I adore dragons again from before you were born, but what brought you to dragon love?
Hmm. Anne McCaffrey's Pern.
Yeah, okay, never mind. That's it. That's it. No, sorry, folks. I love when it's the right answer and it's like part of my heart. And I dare not even say anything because we've only got a few minutes left and I want to cover up with other things. But I'm so delighted you know it.
Of course I do. I was reading this, but
I've said
I
it to
started
other
with the
people who
Harper
never
trilogy when I was like 12 or 13,
see.
and
Oh
I
my
immediately jumped into the adult books because I couldn't not read them.
Listen, good parenting. That's all I can say. You mentioned your mom before we started. Sounds like good parenting, good environment
Oh,
that you
she
even
just took
got
me
it.
to the library and let me loose.
Ex
Whatever
that's
I wanted to pick up and put in the
that's
bag was mine.
that's the that's the yes, 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 yes. Um, this question, see, part of me says it's ridiculous, but maybe you'll give me a different kind of answer because I was going to ask, what is your favorite genre of speculative poetry? Now I know, and you tripped the light fantastic in terms of genre jumping and bending,
God,
but do you have a favorite? And if not, it's okay, but is there a
I
favorite?
I genuinely don't have one
Good.
because everything is a new challenge. If there's a genre that I haven't written yet, I want to investigate it, interrogate it, write my own take on it, and
Have you done
yeah,
any
it's
solar, but solar punk or
yeah.
hope?
I think I've written a couple of solar punks,
See, I've
but they haven't
never.
sold yet.
Mhm. So you have investigated it.
Yeah,
Tell
I
us.
also tried to write a lunar punk, but I'm not real 100%
Whoa.
sure what the difference between lunar punk and solar punk is, except for that it's a little bit more gothic. So I tried to go for that, but
Wow.
I wasn't quite sure I was doing it right.
Tell us. about how you came upon the Welsh forms. So I adore triolets because but they're so easy to get wrong. Yours was
Yes,
so exquisite. It's so easy to be yucky with the triolet. I love villanelles. I've never done a Turzanel. Villanelles are fun. Any all of the, repetitive forms
they
are
can't they're so easy to get wrong because
they're
if you don't write the
but they're
refrain the right
right way.
way, if you don't get a good refrain that it can progress and make meaning that grows and develops and evolves throughout the course of the poem, that can land in a different way by the end than it was at the beginning, it can be really hard.
See
And
all see your concerns. However, the forms invite you to try though, don't they?
yes, they do. They
They-
absolutely do.
they-
I consider form both a challenge and a companion because the form for me reaches across the divide and says, I'll meet you halfway. And like I said during my reading, sometimes when I start writing a form, I have an idea of where I want to go, but the form itself tells me, no, that
Guide
might work
you.
better. And so we wind up together somewhere that was better than where I expected to go.
Mhm. Excellent. Excellent. But there was something else we were saying that we went away from, so I forgot.
You asked me about
Uh,
Welsh forms. I
yes, thank
I
you.
decided that I was kind of bored with the French and Italian forms that I had available to me, and I was looking through Robert Brewer's list of poem forms,
Yes.
and I'm like, Irish forms, and no, not the Irish forms, not the Irish forms. Those are too scary. Let's try these Welsh forms. And sometimes, because of the form itself and how difficult it is to land a rhyme here and a rhyme at the beginning of the line over here that matches here and have alliteration on these things over here that also need to rhyme, sometimes they come out humorous. And maybe that's a feature, not a bug. Because we do need light verse that people can just enjoy too. It doesn't all have to be deathly serious meaning of the universe stuff. Sometimes it it's okay to just have fun with words.
Well, you do both, so
I
that's
try
lovely.
again.
Yeah. Um, Tell us a bit about your writing routine. Do you write to a particular regimen?
I don't actually. I am the mother of a teenager who well, he's a teen, and he has both autism and ADHD, and
Mm,
so I have to be prepared to get up and go at a moment's notice, depending
mm,
on what's gone on at school today.
mhm,
So, and I can be interrupted at any moment for a call from the school saying something's gone wrong. So
mm,
I write when I have the time to write.
mhm,
And when it's poetry, that is very useful because I can write in microbursts. I have an
mhm,
hour, I can write a couple of poems.
mhm.
If I have a longer stretch of time, it invites me to write short stories or maybe
That's how
get
you.
around to finishing novel number three in that trilogy, which I really need to work on.
Wow.
So when I work on poetry, I will try to create prompts for myself by looking into interesting articles on science, archaeology, history, things that I haven't encountered before. So that not only am I learning something new, I'm engaging with something new. So that because writing the same thing over and over and over and over again and just filing the serial numbers off, which is what a lot of the novelists I grew up reading would do,
Mm, mm.
is not for me. I don't want to ever be that dull. So I want to always be doing something new.
How do you decide whether if a thought is a thought for your prose or a thought for your poetry?
That's a really interesting question because at least twice now I have started with a poem and it's wound up being a novella. And I've sold both the poem version and the novella version. So
Mm,
it depends on if I'm done with the thought by the
mm.
time I'm done with the poem. And sometimes the poem is like for Vesta.
That's a good way to put it. I got to write that down. Am I done with the thought?
Is it still whirling around in my head saying, no, no, no,
Mhm,
you're not done with me. Write me.
mhm, mhm. So no preference either between genres in that way?
It really depends.
Prose, prose versus poetry. And do you include, see now I'm thinking about xenoforming a different way because I'm like, oh my gosh, she's a prose writer, which means she's into the narrative form
Absolutely.
and and into multiple stories.
Exactly. Three of my collections that have been published so far are narrative collections. Bounded by Eternity has a narrative arc, but has multiple different poetic styles and forms and so on through it.
Mm.
Xenoforming From Voyages and Returning each have a narrative.
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
you can read each of the poems in them separately, but they generally do better when part of the whole.
Yes, yes. But I'm just trying to tease out your decision making as to why is xenoforming a collection of poems versus a novella?
Because it started as a couple of poems, and I went, there
Ah,
is more here. And
mhm,
so I
mhm.
began to write other poems that filled into an
The
arc, and I
story.
went and
Mhm,
further and further and further until it became a novella in verse. It is not as much of an investment in time for people to sit down and read as a traditional novella, which can be 17,000, 20,000,
mhm,
40,000 words. They get pretty hefty. It's about the length of a short story. It's about 5,000 words
mhm.
altogether. But I think that because it's in poem form, it invites the reader in to make their own
Absolutely.
inferences
Mhm.
and make their own connections, and it becomes richer in a way than if I had been trying to belabor it for
It
20,000 words.
it's evocative, and so you definitely do a lot of showing and less telling.
Again, I really do try. Again,
You do it well. She does it well. Oh, folks, really, she does it so well. Um, Sorry, I just looked at the time.
yeah, we probably have to hush now.
Oh my gosh. We have 1 minute.
Oh no.
Please tell people where they can find your work.
You can find my work at www.deborahLdavitt.com. There are links there to all of my poetry collections, all of my novels, to my 200 or so published poems, and The Partridge in a Pear Tree, that is my TTRPG that I wrote with my husband. So
Ooh, thank you so much,
thank you
Deborah
so much for having me. It was
L.
a delight.
Davitt, because you are such an incredible creator and such an evocative creator. And I urge everyone to seek your work, to keep an eye out for you. And I thank you for joining us for the first of Starburst for Women's History Month. I urge the audience to join us next week when it will be L. Marie Woods. And I wish everyone peace and sanity and safety in this very troubled time. And please seek the best through your own kindness and your own ability. You all have the ability to make change. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I will say good night. Thank you, Deborah.
Good
Again,
night.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Good night.